Hey everyone, on this episode of the podcast, we talk about why I went into a funk last week. A mild to maybe even significant depressive funk. I mean, it was brought on by work, the pandemic, and above all, my own writerly neurosis. Sonya and I talk about what went wrong and how we tried to make it right, in the hopes that, if you suffer from any of this as well, maybe there's some clues or some solutions for what you might use. As always, if this episode speaks to you in any way, if you find it helpful in any way, the best way to stay in touch with us is through the newsletter, paulkicksnewsletter.com. For now, though, let's head straight to the episode. Hey, Sonya.
Hello, Paul.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Well, I think you kind of know how I've been over the last week. We've actually had a bonus episode that we put out last week. Part of the reason it was just the bonus episode last week was because I went into a little bit of a dark spiral.
Little.
All right. I think I'm better. Do you think I'm better?
I think you're better.
All right. Let's describe what happened, and we can talk a little bit about the solution. It started out as so many things do, which is to say innocuously. I was reading a book, and it wasn't even related to the book that I'm researching. It's just sort of like a book to launch one's sort of entrepreneurial ventures. It's called Ask. It's by a guy named Ryan Levesque. Really good book. I was learning a lot from it. But then guess what happened?
Oh, I can guess.
I started to compare myself to Ryan. Ryan has had a lot of success in his field and his marketing niche. Marketing was something that I wasn't so sure that I even had to get into when I started out as a writer, but now, of course, we have to in the 21st century, even more so for those of us who are trying to make it on our own as writers without the support of like a university or some other full-time employment at corporate media. So it's sort of the reality, right? You gotta do this sort of stuff. But the problem was not Ryan's book. It was instead that I began to compare myself to Ryan. And Ryan's success. He's had a great deal of success in his marketing world, and I was like, well, how come I haven't had that success, Sonya? Sonya, does that sound familiar to you?
That sounds super familiar.
All right, so do you want to familiarize the audience, I guess, with
issues?
My neurosis, as
Your
it is?
Issues?
All right, you call it what you will. I'm just going to call it by its medical term.
I'm trying to be polite.
You don't need to do that.
I'm going to be polite.
Okay, go ahead.
It's your issue. You compare yourself with others, normally writers.
When was the first time you saw this? Do you remember?
Oh, way back when. We were dating. I have this very distinct picture of you sitting on my couch reading the New York Times magazine, and a young writer who was about the same age as you at the time, which was early 20s, had been published.
In the New York Times magazine.
And you were furious.
I was
furious. Fist in the air. You were so
I was
angry.
furious that he had been published and I had not. And I was thinking along the lines of something that I was unfortunately thinking last week, which is that, is this a zero-sum game? Does his appearance mean that I won't make it?
And in your mind, it means yes. Always yes.
I tell myself that I don't need to do this.
But
that
you do.
I even have as one of my mantras, I have this great quote from Teddy Roosevelt, comparison is the thief of joy. I try to tell myself that anytime I feel myself doing it. And yet, the quote from Teddy doesn't seem to sink in a week like last week. So basically what happens, and the reason this is related to my own book research, is I get into some sort of like mild to maybe even major depressive funk. And for like 2 days, it was probably a solid 2 days, wasn't it, Sonya?
Oh, yeah.
Because we didn't even record a podcast episode last week. I got so far behind schedule. Basically, I just was like, I just sort of quit doing stuff and let myself be depressed
And
thinking and angry and like, how come?
Lots of angry.
And it's one of these things where it's like it compounds, right? And unnecessarily so. How come I don't have Ryan's success? That must mean that I'm not good at what I do. Ergo, this book will not succeed. Why am I trying to succeed at this book? Why am I trying to succeed in these other ventures? Why don't I just go get some job selling insurance? And that's not to say if any of our listeners sell insurance, that's a bad thing. It's just it's a great thing. I actually have a very good friend in high school who sells insurance, does a fantastic job at it. That's not the question. It's just like selling insurance is not what I want to do for the rest of my life, right? But then I think, well, why am I trying to do anything that's sort of difficult and perhaps hard to pull off. Why not just stick with what I know I could do?
It's tough.
And so these thoughts compound themselves, and I think they end up exhausting me.
Oh, yeah. And me.
How so?
Well, it's a lot of work to be that angry, be that frustrated
For that long?
for that long. It's really tough. And it takes a toll, I'm sure, just like anybody who's in a partnership or marriage or however, your work or home life is situated. To have someone who's really struggling with that is, it's not easy.
No.
It's not easy.
So then you start to second guess everything, like how am I proceeding through my days? Am I not doing it right? Do I need to restructure my days? Instead of this model that I've employed where I basically do my creative work in the morning and my managerial work in the afternoon, should I just do all creative work 3 days a week and all managerial work the remaining 2 days a week? Like,
well, see, now you're just,
and now you just start to, it just starts to, the questions, the whys lead to what ifs, lead to more whys, lead to what ifs, and suddenly you get to the point where you're doubting almost everything you do.
Over and over again. Do you remember when you were writing The Saboteur and you had that so much doubt about whether Robert's story was true?
Well, I had so much doubt about one episode of whether Robert's story was true. And that was because I could not find independent confirmation.
Could not. And you, instead of, you allowed yourself to go down that rabbit hole of self-doubt. What happens if I don't find it?
How do I write around it? Does it mean that the book won't get published?
And you go 10 steps ahead of where you are right now instead of just
looking at the next step. Okay, what does that mean? Because you say that, and I don't think people understand. What does draw your circle mean?
Draw your circle means deal with your immediate situation.
Yes, be present.
With what is right in front of you, but you have a really difficult time sometimes doing that when you're frustrated. You panic and you look way ahead into a future that may or may not exist, and you compare yourself and you prepare for eventualities.
And like very dire eventualities.
Very dire, yes.
Which puts me in a defensive position, very defensive crouch. And we're getting a little bit to the solution, but it's just important, I think, to tee up.
The solution is very obvious. It's listen to your wife.
Yes, but I mean, I'm using some of the language that we'll use in the solution end of this episode.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I basically lose a couple of days. And because I lose a couple of days, I lose a couple of days worth of book research too. And now I'm scrambling to make up that time. And I still don't know that I necessarily have. And now the good news is that I have my second vaccine shot. So now I'll finally be traveling again, and hopefully before the end of the month, no later than early next month. And yet all I can think about is how I'm failing in some way or other. Based on really...
Nothing.
Based on nothing.
Nothing.
Like, I was happy reading the book until all of a sudden I saw my own failings in his success.
Well, that's just not right.
That's
not good.
So basically what happens from there?
You listen to your wife?
I do, and I also listen. And you were one of the first people to say you should probably see a therapist about this.
Well, I think every writer should have a therapist on speed dial.
I do, literally. So I called him and I scheduled what amounted to basically an emergency session.
Yes. At my insistence.
At your insistence.
Insistence.
And a couple of things came through. And this is particular to me, but maybe it's also particular to you. The whys and the what ifs. One of the first things he said is, you've been doing this for years. I've been seeing this guy for 3 years now? Maybe
more
4?
Than that when you were writing the book. Also, at my insistence.
Oh, writing the first book?
First book. It was just
okay, so I've been seeing him for maybe stressful. 7 or 8 years now. And so he's got a pretty good case file on me. And he's just basically like, look, going all the way back to when you were a little boy, I had this weird fear about being on a roller coaster and having to go to this theme park. And I literally, it was announced that we would be going to the theme park at the end of the year. And I literally spent the whole of my 6th grade year worrying about what would happen if in the moment I would fail to get on the scariest ride, which I ended up getting on that day anyway. like when the day finally came, and I felt great.
Okay.
But I spent the entire year doing this what if. And so basically this what if and this what will happen next and why will this happen and how can I prepare myself for the eventuality of this bad outcome, it's surfaced in countless iterations over the course of my life. And unfortunately, the book, the Ryan Levesque Ask book is but the latest iteration.
The latest in a series.
And it had nothing to do with him. It had nothing to do with me researching my own book. It just was how it happened. And so what ends up happening is it puts me in this defensive crouch that I was talking about earlier, and I start to see the world through like very negative, blind,
super negative
filters. And there's this line, I mean, I quoted Teddy Roosevelt. There's also this line from Marcus Aurelius, which is something like, your thoughts paint the color of your soul. And I like that. That's true, right? If you
what color is my soul, Paul?
Yours is probably just all sunshine and rainbows.
It's like a pretty color.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
You were fishing for that compliment, but I'm happy to give it to you anyway.
Love compliments.
She does. And I do like that. I like that quote a lot, don't you? Because it feels like it feels like it's. I'm struggling because it's so simple, but it's hard for me to voice. It feels like it's true.
It is true.
And it's so stupid to have to say it aloud, but if you allow negative thoughts to run your days, you will see the world negatively. If you choose, and you can choose to see the world with a positive outlook.
So who does that sound like?
Your days will begin to take on a
positive aspect. Who does that sound like?
Aspect.
It's telling you these things. Who is telling you these things?
Sounds like you.
Yes, it sounds like me.
I mean, why does it always have to come back to you?
Because I'm telling you these things almost daily. Daily. I am telling you.
And you're telling me that I don't listen to you?
Of course you don't listen to me.
So here's the thing. We lost, I don't know how much we lost. I mean, we probably lost in terms of like actual productive hours, 4 days, maybe 5.
But what did we lose? There's nothing to lose, Paul.
Okay, that's also a great way to look at it. Yes,
there's nothing to
Even
lose.
now, I'm looking at it through a negative, whereas
Always.
like I learned instead.
You learned. You grew.
I grew.
You have the incredible luxury of being able to map out this book and this course and all these things that you're doing on your own terms, and yet you're constantly chasing some schedule, some deadline.
Well, there is a real, like, I need to start writing the book by August because, like, I need to finish. It is May. I know, but like I have to. I have to go to 4 different American cities, and that makes me a little bit nervous.
You're not on the Oregon Trail. You're not gonna get in a covered wagon and ride across the country and
We're still going to be in COVID times. I don't know what it's going to be like out there.
Okay, but you're still going to be able to get on airplanes. So you create these schedules and these deadlines that are completely arbitrary, and you give yourself no flexibility. You didn't lose anything. You just had a moment where you needed to take a break and do a reset. That's it. Which I don't think is any different than maybe any other creative person out there who has a moment where they just cannot produce for whatever reason.
Can I say something that because I agree with you?
No, I'm kidding.
I also feel like I acted that way because I had been avoiding rest. And I think rest is so very important. Like I was just literally not taking a day off from work.
Well, that's your own crazy, because I was telling you to do that too.
So like even on Sundays I would find stuff to do, whereas after the bad depressive thing, I was like, okay, I'm not doing anything on Sunday, and I didn't, and I felt great. And then this last Sunday came and I didn't do anything then either, and I feel great. I feel much better now. I feel refreshed. I'm at the point where I have to do some stuff on Saturdays. It's just a reality. We've got a lot of projects launching. Blah, and Sonya's making her face. I'm rolling my eyes. She's making her face. But it's the reality. It's the truth.
It's your reality. It's your reality.
Okay, but there's going to be things that don't get done then.
Okay.
But what I was going to say is that I feel like right now having that Sunday completely free of everything is a great recharge for me. And it sounds so stupid to have to say it. Wow, somebody should take a day off. Like literally like what the Bible says, on the 7th day you shall rest. Wow, it works. It works. And it's helped to reset my mind, and I do feel better, and I have taken the idea of, recharging. I have taken the idea of, my therapist used the word like catastrophizing, which is what all of those what ifs and why and how comes questions were. And I'm able to I can see how I can stop myself now. I can notice these thoughts for what they are. They are not even related to the book, just like they've never been related to that roller coaster or any other episode across the whole of my life. They are instead a series of questions that prop up around a given subject, and that is it. Right?
Yeah.
And so now I'm hopefully going to get a better handle on seeing those thoughts for what they are and trying to stop them from getting like really punitive and exhausting.
Rest helps.
Rest
More
helps.
rest.
More rest.
Releasing yourself of these restrictions that you place on yourself to create. And
yeah, I know. But like, okay, COVID has done something weird where I just feel like I have to do all this primary research now at the end, and I'm about to, but it's making me nervous that we've had to put it off for this long. I don't know what I'm going to find on the road, and I don't know if finding that stuff is going to lead to more days.
Well, then why can you worry? There's nothing you can do about it.
And this is something else.
There's nothing you can do.
This is something else that's come up. You can only respond to events as they surface.
Draw your circle.
True, draw your circle. Also, this is like a big part of what Marcus Aurelius would say. You can only respond to life. You cannot control outside events. You can only control your thoughts and your actions.
Then why are you worried about stuff that may or may not happen?
I try my best not to, but there are still times where it surfaces, and the last couple of weeks have been one of those instances. You don't think so? Okay, so, I mean, like, I wish we could say that the solution was final, but I'm not so sure that the solution will ever be final, right? Like, I think that it's always going to be this ebb and flow. Maybe that's part of drawing your circle, realizing even the limitations of what success...
Less ebb and more flow.
Realizing even the limitations of what success will look like, but hopefully mitigating
Why
what
do you even
disaster
have to
will look like.
Limit, like, the pursuit of success is its own reward. The journey of writing this book is
its own reward.
Its
I mean,
own
yes,
reward.
I love to write books. I was just saying this to a friend just today. Like, I want to write books for the next 30 years of my life. Why? Well, there's some people who get rich, but that's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I love to write. That's it. Full stop. I love to write. And I love to write books.
Yes.
So I want to do this forever. And it's
do
the
it.
process. It really is.
You need to trust the process.
Hence, second
because
season.
Right now,
no, that's a great story. The process.
You don't trust the process.
I need to trust the process.
You need to. And you need to trust me.
Okay, I will. I mean, I do. I do.
Sometimes. After the fact. You trust me after the fact when I'm right. And then you come back and say,
I trust you a lot of the time.
Okay.
All right. Season 2. Now that's a great story. The process is produced by one
Jeffrey Willett.
With music coming from
also Jeffrey Willett.
Sonya and I will be back next week. I will hopefully be in a better mood.
You will. I'm going to see to it.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you like this season of Now That's a Great Story, or just getting caught up on the first, the best way to keep in touch is through the newsletter, paulkicksnewsletter.com. There, you'll get even more advice on how to be the best writer and storyteller you can be. In fact, right now, I've got a free PDF for you. The 7 rules top long-form writers follow to make more money from their stories. Sign up for the newsletter and you'll get the free PDF. Head there now, paulkicksnewsletter.com.